All right, hi there. I'd like to thank everybody for coming and for taking the time to be with us today to talk about the fatigue epidemic and why you're fatigued and what you can do to reclaim your energetic self. So if you're looking like the people on the left and you want to look like the people on the right and you don't want to have caffeine by the boatloads, there's other things that can be done to help you with your energy. It's really about finding the underlying cause. And so just a little bit about myself. I'm an associate physician at the American Center for Biological Medicine. I've been here a few months now. I practice a lot of acupuncture, and I do a lot of hormone balancing type things as well, and digestive and autoimmune, and basically any of the stuff that I'm talking about today is stuff that I can help you with on your journey to better health. And I would also like to, all right, so there's multiple causes of fatigue, obviously. It's a commonplace problem. It impacts everyday life. There's long-term health implications, of course. So the long-term health implications of stress, a good book that you can read to read more about this is Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. I really liked that one. So that's a great one to tell you more about what stress can do to your health and basically how to get around all the stressors and feel better and be able to relax. And so identifying the problem and finding the solution, obviously that's really important to not having so much fatigue. And if there's an underlying health disorder, then you might need help finding what that is and addressing it. So one of the biggest causes of fatigue is, of course, sleep deprivation. Sometimes that's on purpose with some people who really like to stay up late. They're the night owl type, like that little owl at the bottom. He's holding his cup of coffee, staying up all night, drinking caffeine by the boatloads. There's definitely people like that. They like to stay up all night on their tablets, you know. And they're just not the sleeping type of people, you know. They're okay with like 3 to 5 hours of sleep. That's fine for them. And for everybody else, though, you know, sleep deprivation can be really annoying and frustrating if you can't sleep night after night. And there might be some underlying physiological causes for that that need to be addressed. One type of insomnia that you can have is sleep onset insomnia. So that's when you have difficulty getting to sleep. And there's also sleep maintenance insomnia, where you wake up usually 3 to 5 a.m. It can be due to adrenal problems. So that's the type of person who can't get back to sleep. And in either case, you might be watching the clock all night and just wondering, when am I going to get to sleep? And if that goes on for a long period of time, then it's probably something that you should seek medical advice for. Sleep hygiene, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. So you might wonder what that is. So it's just basic ways of getting better rest, essentially. So something as simple as mattress or pillow comfort, that can affect your quality of sleep. Say that your mattress or pillow is over 5 years old, it might be time to invest in new ones. So that can help with your sleep and then your energy levels during the day. Also chronic pain issues, chronic stress and anxiety. And there's a lot of underlying health conditions too that can lead to sleep deprivation. So the fix, get some sleep. That's obviously easier said than done, though. And if you knew what was causing you to not sleep and you knew how to get better sleep, then you'd obviously do so. So sleep onset and sleep maintenance, insomnia herbs, there is specific things that you can take for both of those. One of the brands that I really like is Gaia. They've got a sleep maintenance formula, and they've also got a sleep formula that are good for both of these types of issues. They've got various herbs in them that are good for both of those things. Sleep hygiene, so like I said, I was going to talk more about that. So allowing enough time for sleep. So obviously, don't go to bed at midnight and, you know, and be expecting to wake up at 6 a.m. and getting, you know, you're expecting 8 hours of sleep. So obviously that's not going to work out. Sleep hygiene, yeah, so that also includes stuff like avoiding looking on your tablet or your smartphone or even TVs a couple hours before bed, because that prevents your brain, a particular area of it called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that regulates your sleep-wake response and produces serotonin and melatonin. So basically all those bright lights prevent your body from producing melatonin, which makes it very difficult to get to sleep. And for short-term stressors that you know are going to be coming up, such as a hard and fast deadline that you need immediate help with, and you're not going to be sleeping because you know that your stress levels are going to be sky high. Of course, there's pharmaceutical options, like Ambien is a common one. There's Balsamo, which is a newer one. Stuff like that can help in the short term, but it's definitely not going to help you for addressing the underlying cause and really fixing what's the problem. So I only recommend those short term. And magnesium is another great thing that helps with the nervous system function. So if your nervous system is overworked and unable to relax, magnesium really does help with nerve function. And it also helps with decreasing muscle tone. So if you're getting a lot of those spasms, the Charlie horses in your calves and stuff, oftentimes that's a magnesium deficiency and might signal that that's what you need in order to get better sleep, if that's also affecting your sleep. We have something as well called sound bed therapy. So that helps to balance our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So when your sympathetic nervous system is too high, you're pumping out stress hormones and it makes it very difficult to sleep. And then when your body is exhausted, the sympathetic nervous system has been doing that for too long, then you go into parasympathetic mode. So your parasympathetic nervous system is too high because your sympathetic nervous system is unable to do what it's supposed to. So addressing that, obviously can help with your energy levels. And another thing that needs to be addressed for a lot of people is hormones, adrenals, and thyroid and blood sugar problems, because all of those affect one another, and they can also affect your energy levels during the day. So other things that are important for optimizing your energy levels are exercising, reducing your stress levels, which is, like I said, often for a lot of people it's easier said than done. Reducing, cutting, or modifying caffeine, and eating a healthy diet can go a long way as well. And if all else fails and you've really looked at everything and you still can't feel or figure out why you're not sleeping well, then a sleep study might be called for, because that can elucidate what the other underlying health conditions are that might be affecting your sleep and your energy levels during the day, such as sleep apnea. That's even another one. So adrenals, that's a huge problem for a lot of people in our high stress society. We go, and there's not a lot of time for rest and relaxation. So there's the fight and flight response, and then there's the rest and digest response. So our body nowadays is constantly in fight or flight mode, whereas it's supposed to be only reserved for when that lion's chasing you, short bursts of energy, short duration. It's not meant to last, months on end, years on end, because that starts to really deplete our adrenals. So, and then, so first you start out in sympathetic mode, and that's when your stress hormones are too high. And after a certain amount of time, your body just can't keep up, and the sympathetic nervous system is depleted, so the parasympathetic nervous system takes over, and then you've got parasympathetic dominance. And this also goes kind of hand in hand with adrenal hyperfunction or hypofunction. Hyperfunction is obviously when it's over, it's basically your adrenals are overworking and they're producing too much stress hormone, cortisol, and adrenaline. And if it keeps it up for too long, like I said, then your adrenals go into fatigue or exhaustion, and then you get what's called adrenal hypofunction. So that's when your body can't produce enough cortisol or adrenaline to meet your needs. And the adrenals really like to have B vitamins and vitamin C. Those are two of the things that feed the adrenals. So if you're deficient in those, obviously that's going to affect your energy levels and your ability for your adrenals to work optimally. A protein deficiency also makes your blood sugar not be regulated properly, so that has a real effect on your ability to have good energy during the day. So blood sugar dysregulated also affects the adrenals, and the adrenals are actually responsible for helping with your blood sugar regulation. So if your adrenals are tanked, you're not going to be able to regulate your blood sugar properly, and that might need to be addressed first before you can get control of your blood sugar, such as in type 2 diabetes, for example. Also, leaky gut, we'll talk a lot more about that later. Basically, your gut lining has cells that run throughout the length of the intestinal tract that are one cell layer thick, and there's little things that hold it together called junctions. So when you're under a lot of stress or you're eating things that are not necessarily good for your body, then these junctions between the cell layers basically pull apart, and then everything that's going through your digestive system, so all the food that's not properly digested, or even if it is, it's slipping into your bloodstream, and then your immune system's like, oh my gosh, what is this? And basically the immune system overreacts, and that starts to affect your adrenals because your body's super stressed when that happens, because that food is not supposed to be in your bloodstream. So you got to address the leaky gut in order to feel better, because your body won't calm down until that cell layer, again, is glued shut and everything's not getting into your bloodstream and alarming your immune system. And thyroid and hormonal imbalance also, it affects adrenal health as well, because they all work hand in hand. So there's something called a cortisol steal. So when your body is really, really depleted, the adrenals are not producing enough cortisol, what they'll do is they'll steal your hormone. Both men and women have them. They have progesterone, so your body will steal the progesterone in order to make more cortisol. So that will make your hormones imbalanced for both women and men, more so women though. A lot of women will have what's called estrogen dominance, where their estrogen is too high in relationship to their progesterone, and then they get a lot of symptoms such as breast tenderness, bloating, PMS. All of those are very common. Even weight gain, that can be part of it as well. So the fix to adrenal problems and to adrenal overactivation and even adrenal fatigue, learn to relax and take life in stride. I mean, that's easier said than done, but there is definitely tools you can use in order to help with that. So one thing that we offer here as well is called Ebox Therapy. So it's basically a perceptual reframing tool, and what that means is if you've got maladaptive ways of thinking about a situation or a life circumstance that's affecting your body and stressing your body, and it's just not working for you anymore, what this machine does is it basically measures the brain waves and helps to basically fix those brain pathways, and then it helps you to look at things in a more positive light, and that helps your overall life and obviously your stress levels. So another thing, social support is a really big one. There's been a lot of studies on that show that social support is big for decreasing stress levels, and sometimes it's even necessary if there's toxic people or situations in your life to remove yourself from that situation, or sometimes even not be friends with people like that if they're really having an effect on your overall health. Practice effective stress management techniques. So those can be things like yoga, deep breathing, meditation, even prayer, if that's what you're into. And B vitamins. So B5 in particular is what your adrenals really like, and it really helps to feed them. And vitamin C. So if you're deficient in that, definitely taking that can help a great deal for resolving your fatigue. And then there is also stuff called adaptogens, nervines, and glandulars. So these are supplements that can be taken. What an adaptogen is it's basically something that helps your body adapt to stressful situations, and it helps to not have the body be overworked. Nervines basically help to decrease the stress response and help your nervous system to deal with the stressor. Glandulars, which often come from animals, just help to rebuild your adrenals essentially, and they help with that in that way. And so progesterone supplementation, that can also be great for helping with adrenal function because of the cortisol steal, where your body's stealing the progesterone to make cortisol. So taking progesterone can help mitigate that. Cortef is another one, so that's low-dose hydrocortisone. I know that doesn't really sound very naturopathic coming from a naturopathic doctor, but it can actually be very good thing to do to reboot those adrenals, especially low dose, short duration. So I actually recommend that in certain cases where people's adrenals are really depleted, just to get them restarted. And eating breakfast, that's a really important thing for people with adrenal fatigue in order to help the body to rebuild. Reducing caffeine, so don't walk out the door just with a coffee in your hand and not eating breakfast. A good breakfast for somebody with any adrenal problems would be something that's got protein, fats, and a little bit of carbs in it. So say a handful of blueberries with eggs for breakfast, like a veggie omelet. That would be a great breakfast for someone with adrenal fatigue. And then there is also thyroid health that can really have an effect on your overall energy levels. So if you're hypothyroid, obviously that's a big and common thing that affects energy levels today. Autoimmune thyroiditis or Hashimoto's, so those are both things that need to be tested for. Hormones and adrenal imbalance, because they all affect one another, so it's important to address those in order to also help your thyroid sometimes. And if you're deficient in iodine, glutathione, tyrosine, or zinc, then sometimes you're not producing adequate levels of thyroid hormone and you're not converting the inactive thyroid hormone to the active type. So those are needed for sure to properly convert all of that. And a poor diet, so that can really affect your thyroid health too. Also bromides, halides, xenobiotics, and heavy metals. So those are found in the environment. They're toxins, essentially. So xenobiotics is a type of estrogen. So any of the xenoestrogens, those all affect your thyroid level and your overall estrogen levels and all of that. Like I said, they all interrelate and affect each other. And goitrogens are basically things that prevent the production of thyroid hormone in the body. So one thing that you can do is, I don't recommend not eating cruciferous vegetables such as kale, broccoli, cauliflower. Brussels sprouts are really great for you, and they actually help with a person who has too much estrogen in their system and not enough progesterone. But what I recommend you do if you've got thyroid issues as well is to cook them. So simply cooking them makes them not a goitrogen. And taking iodine, selenium, zinc, and tyrosine, that can really help because it helps with the production of thyroid hormones and the conversion of the inactive to the active, like I just said. And drinking filtered water to avoid the bromides and the halides, such as chlorine, because those bind to the thyroid and they prevent the thyroid hormone from binding. So your thyroid is not functioning at its best if it's being blocked by all these toxins in the environment. So Nature-Throid, it has T4 and T3, so inactive and active thyroid in it. That's a great one to help kickstart your thyroid again if you've got low thyroid. Heavy metal testing, because those metals can prevent the binding of the thyroid hormone to the thyroid. So in some cases, that's really important to test for that, especially if you suspect due to, like a work environment that you've got high lead levels, high mercury levels, anything like that, or you eat a ton of canned tuna because that'll have mercury in it as well. The bigger fish tend to have more mercury in them than the littler ones, so it might be useful to get that tested in some cases. And also get evaluated for autoimmune. How you know that you might need this done is if you're having strange symptoms or if you're not responding to the thyroid hormone that you're being given, then it might mean that you need extra testing for the autoimmune. And then hormone health. So you got to address the hormones as well to have more energy. So like I said before, estrogen dominance is very common with a lot of women nowadays. It's where the estrogen is too high in the relationship to the progesterone. And that can be caused by a lot of things, such as environmental toxins, xenoestrogens in particular. So if those are found in the environment, that can really up your level of estrogen falsely and make it hard for the body to get rid of it, and causes a lot of symptoms. So any deficiency in any hormone really can actually cause fatigue. So estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone, if you're low in any of those, you can have low energy. And sex hormone binding globulin, what it does is it basically binds to the hormones, and it makes it so that they're inactive and not acting on the tissues. So too much of that is not a good thing, because you need enough that's acting on the tissues and is active in order to have the hormones have a proper biological effect. And progesterone steal, like I talked about, due to exhausted adrenals, that's the most common case scenario where that will happen. And also dysregulation of the HPA-TG axis. You might wonder, what the heck is that? So that's when the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the adrenals, the thyroid, or the gonads, which is the ovaries or the testes, are imbalanced, and they all affect each other. So that leads to an imbalance in hormones, and like I said before, it can affect thyroid and adrenals as well. So the fix for that, obviously, if you've got hormonal imbalance, is to buy body products without the endocrine disruptors, and there is a lot of those available nowadays, such as any of the health food stores in your area. There's Sprouts here, there's Nature's Fair in Canada. You know, going to any of those places, Whole Foods even, you can buy a lot of products nowadays, like even online, without the endocrine disruptors. So that would be any of the methylparaben, propylparaben, the phthalates. Those are all good to avoid, just because they will throw your hormones off, especially if you use enough of them, which people pretty much use them almost every day in their toiletries. And avoiding microwaving in plastic, storing foods in soft plastic, especially hot foods, because they will leach into your food, and those are xenoestrogens, and then they spike your estrogen levels. In women, that causes estrogen dominance and a whole host of symptoms, and then it can cause hair loss, prostate problems. So yeah, avoid that. And if you're gonna have plastic, definitely use the harder plastic, because it doesn't leach as much. So any of those ones like with the water dispensers, those are fine. Or just use another safe material. There's a lot of bottles nowadays that you can buy that are not plastic, and they don't have BPA linings. And drinking filtered water, that's really important for your hormone balance too. Drinking water that's free of any of those hormones and antibiotics, so having a really good filter is especially important too. And alkalized water even, that's as well important. And supplements such as vitamins, minerals, and herbs, it depends on which hormone is imbalanced, what vitamins, minerals, and herbs, but people like me can obviously advise you on that. So if you've got problems with your hormones, then definitely come see me. And bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, you might have heard of this. So what that is it's basically using hormones. Often it's in pill form. They call it a troche, or they've got creams, or they've got different pills that you can swallow that helps to alter your natural levels and supplement your natural levels of hormones so that they're within optimal range and you're not having all the bad symptoms from hormonal imbalance. And acupuncture, actually, a lot of you might be surprised to find out that that actually is really helpful for hormone imbalance as well, and there's a lot that can be done there, especially in conjunction with other treatments. And then another thing you might not have heard of is seed or oil cycling. So basically you take oils and seeds that are estrogenic during the first half of the cycle for women, and during the second half of the cycle you're taking ones that help with progesterone production, and that just helps to balance your monthly hormones and really helps to regulate the level of estrogen in relationship to progesterone so that you're not estrogen dominant. Specialized diets too, depending on the hormonal imbalance, that can be really helpful for balancing your hormones. So in not all cases do you need bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. You might be able to do, especially for younger people, just with diet, exercise, lifestyle changes, and supplements alone. But in other cases, it is necessary to supplement with the actual hormones. And then blood sugar problems. That's another thing that can really affect your energy levels. So either hypo or hyperglycemia, that's either too high or too low of blood sugar. That can both affect your energy levels, especially if you're getting spikes and you're getting drops in the blood sugar too much. You can get, especially with any low blood sugar, you can get sweating, weakness, nausea, dizziness, confusion, blurred vision, nervousness, shakiness, hunger. You can get anxiety, headaches and fast heartbeats. So there's also that can happen with, it's called reactive hypoglycemia. So in a couple instances, you might have too low blood sugar, and then you'll get those symptoms. Also, poor diet, so too many carbs, not enough protein, especially refined carbohydrates. Those are any of your white sugars, white flours. So you want to avoid eating too many of those and any of the high fructose corn syrup and, you know, just too much sugar in general, because that can really throw off your blood sugar. Also, a couple of nutrients that are responsible for helping to regulate your blood sugar. If you're deficient in them, you might have problems regulating blood sugar. Those are chromium and vitamin D. There is others as well. Adrenal insufficiency, that can cause blood sugar problems as well, like I touched on earlier. Prolonged fasting, of course, that's not good because it will drop your blood pressure, or blood sugar rather. And periods of high stress, because those kick your adrenals into high gear and your body goes into catabolic mode and is breaking down all the foods and turning it into blood sugar. That can spike your blood sugar through the roof, and if that goes on for a long period of time, it can also crash your blood sugar. So not a good situation. So the fix, like for anybody with blood sugar problems, is to pair carbs with protein and fats, and I mean good carbs like veggies, you know, fruits. So you'll, you know, celery, for example, with peanut butter is a good example. Or you can have, what's another good one? So just like fruits with, you know, like a piece of bread with peanut butter, just mixing up your carbs, proteins, and fats to keep your blood sugar steady. And eating enough protein. So if you're not getting enough protein, it's usually at least 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. For a regular person or somebody who trains really hard, you probably want more like 1.5 to possibly even as high as 2 grams per kilogram per day. So if you're not getting that much, especially for a person who's really, really active, then you could have problems with your blood sugar, hormones, and a variety of other things. And obviously your energy levels in general. And also eating small portions throughout the day, so smaller portions more often. That can really help keep your blood sugar steady so you don't get those peaks and valleys. Exercising enough and getting enough rest, that can also help, because there's a lot of studies that say not getting enough exercise and not getting enough rest really imbalances your blood sugar and makes it go all over the place. It gets wonky when you don't get enough rest or exercise. And also avoid high sugar and processed foods. One of the biggest ones, in my opinion anyway, is high fructose corn syrup. So you really want to avoid that because it's especially bad for imbalancing your blood sugar. I mean, any sugar is in too high a quantity, but that one especially. There is actually safer alternatives for sugars that you can eat. Xylitol doesn't spike your blood sugar, and neither does stevia. So in small quantities, those can be appropriate if you still want that sweet taste, but you don't want to be getting all the sugar in your diet. Also addressing adrenal issues, because like I said, that does affect your blood sugar. And then psychological and spiritual conditions, sometimes those are overlooked as a cause of fatigue as well. So people with depression or anxiety can really have fatigue, and so can people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because they are constantly always feeling like they have to be on, and then over time that can really deplete them, especially their adrenals, and oftentimes they will have depleted adrenals. Any sort of spiritual anguish or dark night of the soul, it's called. So, you know, there's a lot of things that can actually help deal with that as well. So just a hard time that people are going through spiritually, and there is people who deal with specifically that. So there's help out there for any type of mental illness or spiritual illness. And some things that you can do that might help as well as social support and support groups, also spiritual groups. Those can help. Talking to a trusted friend who will listen and not judge you for what you have to say. Lowering stress in general, like I said, sometimes easier said than done, but there is tips and tricks and techniques that you can use, and definitely our Ebox really helps with lowering stress levels as well, and we've got other therapies here that can help with that too, such as acupuncture, neurotransmitter testing, which basically will tell you which of the neurotransmitters are out of whack. So it can be any of the ones on the right. There are a few others as well, but if any of those are out of whack, specific supplementation to help with that can really help your energy levels. And there's also energy workers, like I said, those can help with any spiritual issues, help rebalancing the chakras and the meridian systems. Counselors or psychiatrists, those can be helpful for some people, addressing physiological causes such as leaky gut. So what leaky gut does is basically the lining of your GI tract produces serotonin and GABA. It's actually a bigger producer of those things than your brain is. So when you've got leaky gut, your body is unable to produce adequate levels of serotonin and GABA, and that can lead to depression and anxiety. So there really might be a physical cause for your depression and anxiety, and it might not just be, you know, something that came on randomly. So it's always good to check that out too. And balancing thyroid, blood sugar, adrenals, and other hormones, that can help with mental health for reasons like I just said. And if you've got depressed immune function, so then you need probably more sleep. So sleep can help with immune function, also lowering stress, getting enough rest, relaxation, and having fun with friends. That can really help your immune system as well. Having adequate vitamin D status. So in order to figure out whether your vitamin D levels are high enough, you need to get a lab test for that. So that's an easy lab test to do. You can get it done here. And poor diet, so that can also affect your immune system, because if you're not getting adequate nutrients to help your immune system function, that can be a big problem and cause your immune system to not function optimally. A lot of studies as well on lack of social support. So people with lack of social support often have a lot lower immune function. So the fix, obviously, getting adequate rest, and some of the stuff that I talked about earlier will help you do that. Eating a healthy whole foods diet helps with immune function. A lot of vitamin C rich foods like berries can really be helpful, you know, oranges, vitamin C, all of those things. And optimizing your vitamin D levels, that doesn't always have to be in the form of a supplement. I mean, I live in Arizona, so in Arizona you can get a lot of sunshine. Basically the UVB light hitting your skin causes cholesterol to transform into vitamin D. So, you know, just getting adequate sunshine, but not being out in the sun for too long, obviously you get really burned, is actually good for your health. Reducing stress levels, that really helps with your immune function. Exercising enough. I say avoid flu vaccines because a lot of the research I've looked at, especially the newer stuff, says it's ineffective at best and maybe even dangerous at worst. So taking immune boosters as well, that can really help with your immune function. And Myers cocktails, because they've got stuff like vitamin C and glutathione. And they've also got some B vitamins, which can really help with immune function. And then in the case of leaky gut or malabsorption, it's usually a question of which came first, because with adrenal insufficiency, you usually have leaky gut and vice versa. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? That's a good question. Like, and a lot of times it's hard to pinpoint which came first, but oftentimes you need to address both of them in order for the body to be in a state of health again. And imbalance of serotonin and GABA, like I said, so with leaky gut, that's common, and it can cause anxiety and depression, which can lead to fatigue. Lack of nutrients that you're absorbing, so when your GI lining isn't so good, then you're not absorbing things properly, and you may even have malabsorption of certain nutrients. Your immune system is overactive, that also stresses the body. Dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of good bacteria to bad bacteria, and certain autoimmune conditions. So in any autoimmune condition, really, actually, it's usually something that needs to be addressed with the leaky gut, because in almost every condition, there's at least that component of it anyway. So if you have an autoimmune disease, that's definitely something that I would address if you came to see me anyway. So the fix, eliminate foods that you're sensitive or allergic to. And how do you figure out what those are? Because sometimes they can be seemingly benign stuff that's okay for everybody else and maybe even healthy. So to find out what you're allergic to and what your body doesn't like, there is testing such as the LCAT. So that's a food sensitivity test that tests a large number of foods, and it will tell you pretty accurately what you're allergic to. Or there's also gold standard testing, elimination challenge. It's a bit of an inconvenience. Usually to do it properly, you need the advice of a physician, but that's another option. So you can do it that way as well. And there's anti-inflammatory and Mediterranean diets, so that will really help as well. Helps to decrease the stress on the body, because inflammation is a stressor on the body. Reducing stress, which is linked to adrenal problems. Like I said, too much cortisol, too much adrenaline being pumped out of those adrenals all the time, not good for your overall health. So things that are good for leaky gut is L-glutamine, probiotics, demulcents, which basically is substances. They're usually herbs that will calm down the lining of the GI tract and lead to less inflammation. Fish oils help to decrease the inflammation and therefore help with the leaky gut as well. In some cases, if you get too low of enzymes or hydrochloric acid, taking those can be useful. So helps to break down fats and other different components in the food so that they're not stressing the body as much. Bone broth soups, that's another great thing to be eating with adrenal health problems, because it helps to repair the adrenals or the leaky gut as well. Toxicity. So this is often comes about when either there's too many toxins in your environment, or your liver is not functioning optimally, which is the case with a lot of people because there's too many toxins in the environment for our body to deal with nowadays. Phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification, there can be an imbalance in this. So phase 1 really deals with the fat-soluble toxins, whereas phase 2 deals with the water-soluble toxins. So if one pathway is upregulated, then those ones will be getting excreted, and the ones in the other pathway won't. So you got to regulate these pathways with certain nutrients, basically, that will help those pathways work properly. Also, genetic defects like the MTHFR defect, it prevents methylation of some of these toxins, which makes it impossible for your body to excrete. So if you're a poor methylator, that can lead to a lot of toxic buildup in your body as well. And intestinal hyperpermeability, dysbiosis, so bad bacteria, lack of exercise, and lymphatic congestion, that can all lead to more toxins being in your system because there's a lot of stagnation without the exercise, your lymph's not moving, and then you're not excreting properly. So what you can do to help with that, to help relieve the toxicity in your body, liver herbs, one of the common ones that you guys might have heard of is milk thistle. So that's great for helping with liver function. And taking supplements to upregulate phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. So a few of those were listed on the previous slide. Fixing intestinal hyperpermeability and taking high-dose human-strain probiotics. In the case of dysbiosis, that can also help. Exercise to move everything along. And we've got a machine called the Lymph Star. It's pictured there in the picture on the right. So it's got some wands, basically, that help to move the lymph along and basically push it along. So that can be really great to help get things moving so that you can get them out of the body. And we also do a lot of biotherapeutic drainage here. Basically what biotherapeutic drainage is it's a way of draining the body of toxins that's a lot easier on the body and is not quite as hard on the body as a detox. I mean, if you're a more robust constitution and you've got lots of energy, then detox might be the thing that's appropriate for you to get rid of the toxins in your body. But if you're a more energy depleted, weaker person, then biotherapeutic drainage may actually be the right answer, and instead of detox. And then infrared sauna also helps to clear out the We have that here as well, so that helps to clear out the toxins in the body. You just sit in it, it's nice and warm and heats the body up and helps you to eliminate through your skin and your sweat glands. We also have a colon hydrotherapist. Her name is Renee. She works here as well. So she can help do colon hydrotherapy with you to help get you cleaned out and decrease the toxic load in your body. And another reason you might experience fatigue is anemia. And anemia, there is different types. So the most common ones that you guys have probably heard of is B12 or iron deficiency. So essentially, there's not enough red blood cells in the body, or they're not of good quality to carry enough oxygen, and that leads to fatigue. So some common causes, it can be due to heavy periods, it can be due to the MTHFR genetic defect that I talked about before, it can be due to inadequate B12 or iron in the diet, too little stomach acid, because you need stomach acid to activate B12 so that it can actually be absorbed and used. Irritable bowel disease, so any of the Crohn's or colitis type issues, celiac disease, malabsorption, ulcers, pregnancy, because the baby takes the iron and other things and it gets depleted in the mother, so the mother could have iron or B12 deficiency in that case. Certain medications really deplete different vitamins and nutrients, even iron and B12, and chronic diseases as well. And there is other types of anemia as well, such as anemia of chronic disease. It's less common. There's also aplastic anemia, hemolytic anemia. Anemia is associated with bone marrow disease, sickle cell anemia, and another type of anemia called thalassemia. So the fix. There's Iron Man to deliver you some nice grass-fed beef. So he can help with your iron deficiency issues. No, I'm just kidding. So what can you do? Honestly, sometimes vegetarian and vegan diets are not the best way to be getting adequate B12 and iron. I mean, you can do it, definitely. So for certain people, they're appropriate diets, but for other people who tend to have heavy periods or underlying health conditions, it may not be the best diet for them. And so lab testing, you usually need that done to determine which type of anemia you have. And that's a simple lab test, really easy to get done, inexpensive. So in case of an iron deficiency anemia, you can simply supplement iron as well. That is an option. Although the best one, in my opinion, that gets your iron levels up fast enough is a liver fractionation. So vegans might have problems with that just because it is animal sourced. And I mean, it can be done. It's just slower with plant-based iron supplements. So I mean, if a vegetarian or vegan is really against using an animal-sourced one, they can get their levels of iron up. It just won't be as fast. And if you've got B12 deficiency anemia, you can get B12 injections. In the case of the MTHFR defect, though, it needs to be the methylated version of folic acid and B12 that you need. And treating GI issues so that you actually absorb iron and B12 well enough, because a lot of times you can't absorb it properly if your GI tract is all ripped up and not absorbing properly. And antioxidant therapy that can help decrease inflammation, to help you absorb better. Oxygen or ozone therapy can be really helpful to increase the amount of oxygen in your body and help with the fatigue when you're iron or B12 deficient. And another common cause, or hopefully less common cause, but nowadays it can be very common, having underlying illnesses that are really the cause of your fatigue. Hopefully that's not the case, but if you've tried basically everything else, then you may need to look at other underlying conditions that could be the cause of your fatigue, especially if it's severe or ongoing and it's really affecting your life. So cancer and chemotherapy, of course, can lead to fatigue, autoimmune disease, diabetes, fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, metabolic diseases, viral conditions and chronic infections, congestive heart failure and kidney failure. So the fix, it's multifactorial, obviously, and there's not a simple fix to any chronic and ongoing underlying conditions, but There is naturopathic oncologists who can work with regular oncologists to help find a good solution and to help support your body and basically address the underlying imbalance that led to the cancer in the first place. So I usually recommend to people, if they're open to it, to also see a naturopathic oncologist or somebody who specializes in more holistic cancer care alongside their regular oncologist, if that's someone that they want to see as well. We've got Dr. Jeff Drobot with us. He's really good at dealing with cases like that. And then in autoimmune disease, fixing the underlying intestinal hyperpermeability, because like I said, with almost every autoimmune illness, that definitely is a component of it. Addressing the inflammation and addressing the emotional component of the disease, because often there is an underlying emotional component as well. Diabetes, addressing glycemic control, including insulin and blood sugar. Fibromyalgia, addressing emotional components, because again, this is another illness that there's often a huge underlying emotional component. Addressing mitochondrial dysfunction, so those are the energy producing cells of the body that really help with your body's energy production. So if they're not functioning correctly, that can lead to, they think, at least it's a theory anyway, that that's one of the underlying causes of fibromyalgia and many other illnesses as well. And there's also an immune component and other components to fibromyalgia as well that need to be addressed. And in metabolic disease, you've got to address the underlying cause of high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat around the waist, and abnormal cholesterol and triglyceride levels. So that's obviously multifactorial rather, and is going to take some time, especially for any illness that didn't come on overnight. It's definitely going to take a while to balance the body. Any chronic infections or viruses in the body, you've got to address the underlying immune dysfunction and what allowed that virus or infection to take hold in the first place in order to achieve balance in the body and to have the body heal. And then congestive heart failure and kidney disease, again, address the underlying cause. There is definitely a lot of them, and it's multifactorial as well. And Chinese medicine, that's something I do a lot of. I do a lot of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, so I'll use the Chinese herbs to also accompany the acupuncture. So basically, in a Chinese medicine perspective, fatigue can be due to qi, or the body's energy or life force that runs through the meridians. When that energy or life force is imbalanced or stagnated, that can lead to fatigue. And then also depletion or stagnation of blood. So that's one of the vital fluids in Chinese medicine theory. So if that's depleted, then your body is not going to have optimal energy. Also yin, which is the female energy of the body, and yang, which is the male energy of the body. When that's depleted, your body won't have optimal energy either. So as you can see on the right-hand side, all the meridians running up and down the body. So that's what I'm talking about. So basically, when the energy is depleted or it's just not flowing correctly, that's when you can have fatigue. So there's a lady on the top who's getting facial rejuvenation acupuncture. That's another thing I do, and just acupuncture in the body as well. So that can help with your overall energy levels. Chinese herbs are pictured below. They've got a lot of herbs and a lot of roots and different berries that they use. So those are in a lot of the formulas, pre-prepared formulas that are good for just balancing the body. And how do I find out exactly what you need? So to do that, we use tongue and pulse diagnosis. So we're basically looking at your tongue and seeing what your tongue looks like, which corresponds to the meridians in your body and tells me a lot about how the energy is flowing in your body and where you might have an imbalance. And that, along with the pulse diagnosis, there's 3 on each side. So 3 on the right, 3 on the left. And by feeling those and the quality of the pulses, you can tell what's going on in the meridians. And it gives me a really good idea of how to treat you properly. So thank you all for listening. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to come and watch my presentation. And if anybody has any questions or comments, I will take them now.
Yeah. Is it truly as simple as cutting out sugars if you're having bad sugars right before you go to bed, that you don't sleep, you get night sweats, things like that, that maybe miss you thinking that it's a hormone thing, and it might not necessarily even be a hormone thing. It might just simply be from sugar.
Well, I mean, if I don't recommend to anybody to really have a high sugar snack before they go to bed. If you tend to be the type who wakes up in the middle of the night, then having a snack that's high in protein and also fat, so like peanut butter, an apple, something like that is usually pretty appropriate. Because otherwise, yeah, blood sugar problems can be the cause of you waking in the middle of the night, and it really might not be hormones. And I don't know if that would really cause night sweating, but it could definitely cause you to wake up for sure and cause a poor quality of sleep.
That's good information. We're trying just to see if that causes a problem.
Yeah, definitely.
So, with regard to the leaky gut issue, is it, am I understanding right that it's the amount of, or it's the inflammatory foods that are causing an inflammatory reaction that is causing those chains to break? Or
yeah, essentially that's part of it. So even the emotional stress too, anything basically that causes inflammation in the body. So whether it's the foods, whether it's toxins in the body, whether it's dysbiosis, or whether it's just stress, yeah, basically causes the junctions to rip apart, and then everything's getting into your bloodstream. Your body is basically freaking out, which creates a stress response and an immune response, and that's why it can really deplete your energy fast if that's happening.
I didn't realize that just stress can cause inflammation. I mean, you just don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
We use the term stress so loosely, like it's just an emotional thing. Not really
Definitely.
It's great information.
And how do I check if anybody on here has questions?
How long does the evaluation take to do the tongue and the pulse, that kind of evaluation? How long does that take?
That in general will take only about 15 minutes at the beginning of an appointment, and generally appointments last about an hour, so yeah.
From that evaluation, then
what you need, yeah, what you specifically need, because what one person needs is definitely different from what the next person needs, because we're all different.
Is it specific to acupuncture, or is it supplementation possibly, or is it that diagnosis?
Well, in tongue and pulse diagnosis, yeah, it is specific to acupuncture and Chinese medicine theory. I mean, I don't know if I would extrapolate that to other things like supplements, because I wouldn't really know how to do that, but maybe there is other people who can do that, but I just don't. Yeah, definitely. Okay. All right, well, if there's no further questions, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to set up an appointment, the number here is 480-614-5820. Thank you all.